Welcome to Wealthy and Wise, where we answer your questions regarding protecting and growing your wealth.
You know, Laura, this time of year where we have the new year coming in, a lot of people asking me questions. What should I be looking for for financial advice for a financial advisor? We have new tax laws. People have lost money, which might be their first time in recent memory. The market's coming back up, but what does that mean? What are you talking to your clients about right now?
First of all, you need to become educated. You need to understand everything that you want to get involved in, anything that you sign, you want to understand. You want to look at books, you want to look at magazines, the internet. You want to get as much information about investing as possible so that you know what you're getting into.
Sometimes I find that even for myself, I'm not a financial advisor, it's not what I do. When you're looking at books, when you're looking at the internet, there's this overall advice, but it's what I call like a 35,000-foot viewpoint. It doesn't actually apply to you and what it is that you're doing. How do you really help people translate that general advice into their situation?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is the right answer is always, it depends. And people really do need to understand the nuances of their specific life, what's going on in their life. There is never a right answer for one person.
And with it depends, it's funny, it's usually the lawyer's answer. But one of the things we're going to be doing at the Wealthy and Wise is we're going to do another episode on what are your assets, what are your liabilities, and on budgeting. But one of the things, Laura, I know that you talk about all the time is net worth. And is that all that it is just find out what your net worth and then we're going to get somewhere? What's next?
That's just a starting place. You know, what is your current situation? What is your net worth and what are you currently spending? What are you making? Understanding that, it's much, much more than that. You need to understand what you're trying to achieve. What are your goals? What are your objectives? What is your time horizon? What are the things that keep you up at night? Those are the types of things that you really need to address.
It is. You know, when I'm talking to clients, it's the same thing. It's always about what are your goals. The assets are, for most people, what the assets are right now. We may want to be changing them. We certainly want to be growing them, but they are what they are. But it's where is it that you want to be? And then when I'm looking at it also, it's not just from the investment perspective, but also from the tax perspective, because the government's joining with you on this reaching of your goals.
Absolutely.
And how is it that we can make sure then that the path that you're taking is one where you're going to end up netting more dollars and they're going to end up netting their legally required minimums, the way that I put it.
There you go.
So if somebody was looking for a financial advisor, what kinds of questions do you think that they should be asking?
Well, you certainly want to know how long the advisor has been in business, what their credentials are, what their education is. You want to do some research on who they are. There are ways to research advisors. If the person's a broker, you can go to finra.org and look up their broker check information. It'll tell you whether there's any regulatory issues. If the person is an advisor, you can go to the SEC.org site and look up their ADV, and that will tell you if they have any issues. But even more than that, Google them. Find out, what the person's up to. There's so much information out there. You probably will learn something about them, what their character is like. You can look at their website and ask a lot of questions. See how amenable they are to actually answering your questions, because that's very important, that you have dialogue with your advisor. It's a partnership, right?
Absolutely. It's absolutely a partnership. Now, with the websites, if we did all this right, if you look down below, you should be able to see what all the websites are. But in terms of when you're working with the advisors, I know that one thing that you're very passionate about is what position is the advisor coming from? What's their objective in the relationship? And you see it very differently in terms of where people are coming from. And I think that's important for people to know is what kinds of questions should you be asking the advisor to uncover what their viewpoint is about your money?
Deidre, the thing is, it's not even just advisors. No matter what information you get, no matter where you get it from, try to figure out the source of that information. And does that source, whether it be an advisor or a book or what have you, do they have an agenda? Are they trying to sell you something? And you really want to make sure when you go to an advisor that they have no agenda, that they aren't receiving compensation from other sources, that you're really the only person that's paying them, because that way you're the boss. You're in control. You know what's interesting is most people don't realize that you have to ask an advisor if, in fact, they'll always put your interests ahead of their own. That is not actually a regulatory requirement. And believe it or not, there are quite a few people in this industry that are legally actually can't put your interest ahead of your own.
What do you mean?
Well, because they are fiduciaries to their employers.
Okay.
You want a fiduciary, And you know that term. It's a
Yes.
legal term. Maybe you want to
Well,
define it.
with a fiduciary, it's somebody who's putting your interest first, not their interest first.
Right. And it's a legal requirement. You can take somebody to court if they don't behave that way. And you want somebody that's going to operate that way for you. Somebody that's actually going to, they say they're going to operate that way. You might even want them to sign a fiduciary oath. We do in our firm, we sign a fiduciary oath for every one of our clients, telling them that that's our commitment to them, where we are working once again for the boss.
Okay. And it's different because as an attorney, the client is our client, and we have lots of ethical rules that are associated with who's the client and who are we representing. And with confidentiality, we can't share it with anyone, but it sounds like that you need to have that question with the financial advisor because the framework isn't necessarily
Right.
there the same way
Well,
there is in
attorneys
working with an
are
attorney.
by ipso facto, they are fiduciaries. With financial advisors, you have salespeople, you have all kinds of people. It's not a requirement. Sometimes there's the financial answer, and then there's the, well, what makes me feel good and what keeps me, lets me sleep at night and so forth. And sometimes the answers are conflicting, and you actually have to help somebody understand this is, if your decision is purely financial, what you should do. But now let's bring in all the other things that are going on in your life to help you make a real decision that's right for all aspects.
Absolutely, because there's many times I have people and they say, well, what's the most tax advantaged way to do something? Well, the most tax advantaged way may be to give away all your assets, but you don't have any assets left. So you can't have the tail wagging the dog, I think is what it comes down to.
I want to tell you about a situation that actually happened yesterday.
Okay.
One of our clients came in. Unfortunately, she recently lost her husband. And it was only about a month ago, but she wanted to start talking about estate planning and so forth. And we are trying to encourage her to do a disclaimer trust,
Okay.
which, I don't know if you want to just mention what.
Yeah, basically, sometimes you have within your estate plan, you take a wait and see approach. And when one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse has a lot of decisions to make. And they need to be able to look at what assets they have. They need to be able to look at what are the tax laws that are governing their situation presently. And they need to be able to look at what their lifestyle is going to be going forward to see if trying to do some estate tax planning is going to make sense.
Right. And there's no question in our mind, financially, it's the right decision
Okay.
for her. But she's so, she's scared. She doesn't know what, she's afraid she's going to run out of money, although she's fine. She's not going to run out of money.
Right.
But there's a lot of emotion, and she's not ready to do that right now. So one of the first things that we have to recognize is that there's a balance between the right answer and then what she feels comfortable with. And what we wanted to do was back up and say, okay, fine, we're going to do some retirement planning and some projections out so she can see worst case scenarios of what would happen. But then also there's the issue of working as partners with people like you.
Well, it's not just a financial advisor and it's not just the attorney. There's always a team that needs to be brought into it, and this is a perfect example. Yeah. So here's somebody who's starting because they say, well, I'm worried about how am I going to be able to survive? So I need to be able to look at the money. But the money then leads into a question of, well, now you need to be able to look at the tax consequences, and there might be legal actions that you need to take to be able to get the best tax consequences. And even when you do that, now we may need to bring an accountant into the mix to be able to say, okay, well, how do we record all of this, and how do we minimize what the income tax situation is? Or even when a client's lost somebody close to them, I'll recommend that maybe they speak to a psychologist, that maybe there's things that they need to be talking about that's not money driven right now, but that's really driven by their health so that they're able to get themselves to the situation they need to be in.
Exactly. I mean, there's no question. This is all fear that's driving her, and it has nothing to do with money. But, working together with a partner, such as an estate attorney, is the right way to go.
The Wealthy and Wise ask questions. We're here to talk to people about protecting and building their wealth, but we want to be able to answer the questions that you actually have. So we encourage you to please send an email to us at questions@thewealthyandwise.com. Don't forget the otherwise you're not going to get to the right place, so that we have an opportunity to answer them on future shows. And also we encourage you to look around the site here. We've got links to some of the things that we've spoken about today, and we've got links to other information that you might find interesting as you're looking at your own financial future.